Hi, so for those of you who don't know me, my name is Mateo Chavez Lewis, and welcome back to Music Theater Theory. Today is a day that is going to go down in Music Theater Theory channel history books, because today we are analyzing Moments in the Woods. This is one of my favorite songs in a musical in history. I think it's possibly the best song ever written, or one of the best songs ever written for the singing actor, because of how clear the thought process is from one idea to the next. It is an absolute blast for an actor to perform. Trust me, I know. Wink wink, nudge nudge, spoiler alert. The song appears in Act 2 of Into the Woods, one of Sondheim's most popular masterpieces, and it's sung by a character known as the baker's wife. Into the Woods, which premiered on Broadway in 1987, takes four iconic fairy tales, Cinderella, Rapunzel, Jack and the Beanstalk, and Little Red Riding Hood, and tie them together with a story about a childless baker and his wife who set out into the woods to find the items that will help them break a spell that a witch has set on them and allow them to finally have children. One thing leads to another, and suddenly an evil giant from the sky is rampaging through the kingdom and trying to kill everybody. So this song, Moments in the Woods, takes place in Act 2, and it happens when the baker and the baker's wife split up to look for Jack, who at the time is kind of missing, is running off somewhere. Traveling alone in a dark corner of the woods, the baker's wife happens upon, and is subsequently seduced by, a prince. And this song happens right afterwards. It starts like this. What was that? Was that me? Was that him? Did a prince really kiss me? And kiss me? And kiss me? And did I kiss him back? Was I wrong? Was it bad? Is that all? Does he miss me? Was he suddenly getting bored with me? So the first thing I want to point out is this waltzy accompaniment here. It's a continuation of the song Any Moment, which is the one that the prince sings to her when he's trying to seduce her. And that sounds like this. Anything can happen in the woods. May I kiss you? What's even more interesting about it is its relationship to a song in the first act. The baker's wife has had kind of a thing for princes throughout the whole show. In one of the first songs in the show, when she meets Cinderella, she asks about the prince in a song called A Very Nice Prince. And the piano accompaniment for that song sounds like this. Sound familiar? What if I move it up a tone? It's this romantic waltz. And it kind of musically represents the baker's wife's fantasy of this prince. So when the baker's wife finally meets the prince in the forest halfway through Act 2, the music she's hearing during Any Moment and then on into the beginning of Moments in the Woods is like this echo of the fantasy she had from time immemorial. And then this fantasy comes true. She gets this thing that she's dreamed of, which is to be with a prince. And now this song is about what happens after that. So in this next section, she snaps out of her fantasy. Wake up, she tells herself. And she does, and it goes from this dreamy waltz to this choppy rhythm. Listen to this. Wake up, stop dreaming, stop prancing about the woods. It's not beseeming. What is it about these woods? Back to life, back to sense, back to child, back to husband. No one lives in the woods. There are vows, there are needs, there are ties, there are standards, there are shouldn'ts and shoulds. Why not both instead? There's the answer if you're clever. Have a child for warmth, and a baker for bread, and a prince for whatever. Never? It's these woods! Now I want to talk about specifically this rhythm we're getting in the accompaniment here, because it's tied in throughout the whole show, and it's part of what makes this show so brilliant. So let me explain. Into the Woods is based on a group of fairy tales, and what do all fairy tales have in common? They all have a moral. So to reflect that, each of the characters, the main characters in the show, have a song at some point where they talk about the lessons that they've learned. First we have Little Red Riding Hood, who after being eaten by the wolf, sings a song called I Know Things Now. Well, he's shown me things, many valuable things. So that accompaniment is going to come back over and over again throughout the show. It's characterized by two things. First, we have this ascending line in the right hand. And secondly, we're in 4/4, the time signature, so there's 4 beats in the bar. And we have these 2 syncopations. A syncopation is basically when a note doesn't fall directly on the beat, it falls slightly off the beat. So check this out. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Those are the syncopations. There's 2 syncopations on 3 and 4 and. And remember that, because that's going to be important. So that's Little Red's learning a lesson song. And then we move on to Jack from Jack and the Beanstalk. Now Jack, after visiting the giants in the sky, sings a song called Giants in the Sky. And the piano accompaniment sounds like this. When you're way up high and you look below at the world you've left and the things you know, little more than a glance is enough to show you just how small you are. Which is virtually identical to the piano accompaniment for I Know Things Now. Do you notice that? It's in a different key. Giants in the Sky is in A flat major, but I Know Things Now is in C major. But it has all the same defining features. It has the same ascending line in the right hand. And it has the same rhythm. You hear those 2 syncopations? 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So this helps us further establish this pattern in the accompaniment as the I'm learning a lesson motif. The next lesson song belongs to Cinderella, and it happens right after she leaves the prince's ball at midnight. The song is called On the Steps of the Palace, and it includes, you guessed it, the same ascending line in the right hand. How can you know who you are till you know what you want, what you don't? You may notice that for this one, the rhythm is a little bit different, like instead of being in 4/4 and with the syncopations, we're now in a waltz, which might be because Cinderella was just at the ball, and so she's still kind of hearing the echoes of that waltz music in her head. So it would feel kind of weird to have her singing a song in a 4/4 time signature. FYI, for those of you who don't know this rule, in a waltz, each bar needs to be divisible by 3. And 4/4 is not a waltz time signature because it has 4 beats in a bar. 4 is not divisible by 3, therefore it's not a waltz. But even though we don't have the syncopations here, because we have the waltz feeling instead for Cinderella, this song still does feature that same ascending line in the right hand. So it's still all tied together. Now, Moments in the Woods is the baker's wife's learning a lesson song. And what we get over the course of the song is that we watch her slowly build up in her music that learning the lesson pattern that we've come to recognize throughout the show. So for this first section, the rhythm isn't syncopated at all. It falls directly on the beat. Back to life, back to sense, back to child, back to husband. Boom, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. In the next section, we have 1 syncopation, so we're getting closer to that pattern that we start to recognize, but we're not quite there yet. Face the facts, find the boy, join the group, stop the giant. Ba, 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 ba. 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3, and. So there's 1 and, but we don't have the second one yet. And then finally, in the last section, we get that double syncopated rhythm with the ascending line that is identical to what we've heard in I Know Things Now and Giants in the Sky. And then in the final section, we finally get that double syncopated rhythm with the ascending line in the right hand. First a witch, then a child, then a prince, then a moment who can live in the woods. 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1. There we get those 2 ands. 1, 2, and 3, and 4. And the motif is completed, the lesson is figured out, the lesson is learned by the end of the song. So while we're watching the baker's wife as the character figure out what her lesson is in real time and process her experience and learn from it, we're also hearing the lesson motif get built up in real time. And this is different from the last 3 lesson songs that we talked about, Cinderella and Jack and Little Red, because for those 3 lesson songs, the character comes on stage and narrates experiences they've already had and have already had time to process. Like, we don't actually see Jack running from the giants. Jack comes on stage after he's escaped the giants and tells us what he's learned from that experience, which may explain why Jack's lesson motif, and similarly Cinderella's and Little Red's, is already ready to go when they enter the stage, because they've already had time to process. But the baker's wife needs to slowly build it up over the course of her song, because we just watched her have the experience, and now immediately we're watching her process her experience in real time. She doesn't have any time to process it on her own off stage before she enters. And so we get to watch it get built up piece by piece by piece. And I think that's pretty cool. Face the facts, find the boy, join the group, stop the giant, just get out of these woods. There you go, did you hear that? Syncopation number 1. We're not quite there, but we're closer. Was that him? Yes, it was. Was that me? No, it wasn't just a trick of the woods. Just a moment one peculiar passing moment. So this musical switch here is brilliant. Throughout the whole song, the baker's wife is kind of switching between forget what happened, I have to find Jack, I have to focus, and like, oh wow, I just was with a prince. So we have this transition between the staccato and legato piano. Staccato, by the way, means like choppy and jumpy. That's very staccato. Whereas legato means smooth and connected. That's very legato. And so she switches between the staccato and legato piano to show like which side of that argument she's currently focusing on. When she talks about, oh, it was just a moment, one peculiar passing moment, she starts thinking about it and letting herself get carried away, we hear that dreamy legato quality in the piano. And check this out. Let the moment go. That's very similar to the piano figure from Any Moment and A Very Smart Prince, that kind of Prince fantasy motif we were talking about. That's what's playing right now. And that's the Prince fantasy melody. So they're very similar. They're kind of variations on each other. And every time she starts to think about that prince, she starts to feel dreamy. And must it all be either less or more, either plain or grand? Is it always or is it never? And that is the first of not one, not two, not three, but 4 rhyming couplets in this song that I think are among the best things Sondheim ever wrote. The other ones are coming up soon. That's what woods are for those moments in the woods. If life were made of moments. See? Every time we start going back to the moment, we go from staccato to legato. And we get that dreamy feeling in the music. Even now and then a bad one. But if life were only moments, then you'd never know you had one. And then as soon as she shuts herself down, it's back to staccato rhythm. Bam, bam, bam. Also, there's the second of my 4 favorite rhyming couplets. If life were only moments, even now and then a bad one. But if life were only moments, then you'd never know you had one. And look at what we've got now. First a witch, then a child, then a prince, then a moment. Who can live in the woods? There we go, that's it. That's the full lesson motif from Giants in the Sky. And I know things now with the syncopations and the ascending line. That's it. It's complete now. She's learned the lesson. It's done. She's figured it out. And to get what you wish, even just for a moment, these are dangerous woods. Let the moment go. Don't forget it for a moment, though. That's Matteo's favorite rhyming couplet number 3. And here comes number 4. This is one of the most beautiful ideas I've ever heard in a song. Just remembering you had an and when you're back to or makes the or mean more than it did before. Oh, what? That's brilliant. Now I understand. And it's time to leave the woods. And that's the end. Of course, the tragedy is, spoiler alert, as soon as she's done the song, she promptly gets squashed by the giant's foot and dies. Which actually kind of makes perfect sense. I mean, she had it all figured out. She had the lesson theme figured out. And she had discovered this really meaningful idea that, like, just remembering you've had an and when you're back to or makes the or mean more than it did before. It's gratitude. That's what she's discovered. Learning to be grateful for the things that she has and the moments she's had and had to let go of. She's learned kind of the biggest lesson that we can all learn is really understanding what it means to be grateful for what we have. She's figured that out. She's figured everything out. By the laws of fairy tale, she has to die. Like in a murder mystery, the character who figures out the mystery, the character who discovers the killer, has to die. Because otherwise they would tell the other characters and the whole story would be over. She couldn't live to tell the other characters what she's learned. They're gonna have to figure it out for themselves. So, rest in peace, Baker's wife. Anyways, this has been a little bit about Moments in the Woods, one of my favorite songs ever to grace the Broadway stage. If you like what I'm doing on this channel, you might consider supporting over on Patreon. Patreon is a website where for a small monthly donation, you get access to a bunch of bonus content, including my full performances of We Don't Talk About Bruno, where I played like all the different characters, and also Moments in the Woods, where I wore my girlfriend's skirt and bandana to look like the baker's wife. Thanks, Nelly. And every donation goes directly towards supporting the channel and helping me upgrade my equipment, etc., etc. Those of you who have been following the channel for a while can already tell that like some of those equipments have been very much needed and have made huge differences in the quality of the video, and all the support has been so appreciated, and it just I'm really, like the baker's wife said, grateful. Anyways, there is a link to Patreon in the description if you're interested in that. Now, I will be taking a brief hiatus from this channel in the next week or so because I'm in 2 shows at the Toronto Fringe Festival. Back and Forth and Bubble Babs are the names of them. And so my time is going to be kind of booked up at the beginning of July. If you're in Toronto, you can definitely come check those out. The link is in the description as well. I will also, though, be co-hosting a few classes over at thebroadwaymaven.com in that time period, so if you want to come say hi, I would love to see you. There's a link to all of this stuff in the description. I don't know why I'm even talking about it. You can just read the description. Anyways, I will be back in a few weeks, bringing you more music theater theory content every single Saturday. So if you're new here, please consider liking, subscribing, sharing with your friends, commenting, doing all that fun stuff. Every little bit of support helps so much, and I'm so thankful for every single one of you. Here's a playlist of my other analysis videos. Here's a video that YouTube thinks you might enjoy. Thank you all so much for watching. Once again, my name is Mateo Chavez Lewis, and this has been Music Theater Theory. Oh.